to Inspire Campfire, a podcast where ordinary people tell their stories of extraordinary adventure. These are campfire stories meant to inspire the rest of us to light the fire within, get outside, follow our dreams, and return to tell our own stories. Ready? Let's strike the match.
Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Scott Wurzbacher, and today we have an incredible story of courage and adventure that reminds us to say yes, even when life throws obstacles in our path. It's the kind of story that challenges us to silence our excuses and listen to that inner voice calling us forward. Our guest is Risa August, based in Colorado. After undergoing surgery to remove a brain tumor, Risa decided to pursue a lifelong dream of cycling from Canada to Mexico. But the surgery didn't completely remove the tumor. So Risa had an unexpected companion on her journey, a tumor that she named Bubba. And this is the story of their unusual relationship and the adventure that followed. Risa is the author of The Road Unpaved, Border to Border with a Brain Tumor and a Bike. She's also an accomplished adventurer, having completed 2 Ironman races, multiple bike tours of over 300 miles, and iconic treks like the Milford Track in New Zealand, Everest Base Camp in Nepal, and the Salkantay Trail in Peru. Her story is one of resilience, determination, and inspiration, and I can't wait to share it with you today. Risa, welcome to the campfire.
I am so happy to be here. And that was such a fun intro. Thank you so much for just reminding me of like all the fun and amazing adventures I've been on. So thank you.
It's some incredible adventures, and you and I were chatting just a little bit before we hit record here. Like, I'm so excited to kind of keep in touch with you, and I'm going to be picking your brain on some of these adventures because so many things that you've already done are on my bucket list, and so I'm just glad to know you. But the fun thing is that we've only known each other for a very short period of time. We've only spoken a couple of times, but I had the opportunity to read your new book, The Road Unpaved, Border to Border with a Brain Tumor and a Bike. And it is seriously, I read a lot of books. It was so good. And I mean, obviously there's a foundation of a very inspirational story and what you accomplished on it, but just the way it was written, it's very easy to read. It's lighthearted, and you have this very cool chronology where you bring the past forward or the future back and the past forward, and you kind of merge everything together. And it's so authentic. I really highly encourage that people check this book out, Risa. But to bring everybody in to this whole thing, because I feel like just by reading your story that we're already close friends, and, we've only talked a couple of times, but I want to bring everybody in here. And just kind of on a brief level, can you tell us just kind of the quick overview of your story, and then we'll dive into the details?
Sure. Well, it's funny. I like to start off by saying there's a pre-diagnosis Risa and a post-diagnosis Risa. And so the pre-diagnosis Risa was an overachiever, a perfectionist, very rigid in her thinking and her lifestyle and the way she managed her life. And post-diagnosis Risa just started really reflecting back and viewing the world through a new lens. And so in 2018, I was diagnosed with a massive tumor at the base of my brain, and it causes a disease called acromegaly. And it's a very destructive disease that wreaks havoc on the body. And initially, I was going to just beat it. Like, I was going to be like, okay, this is just something I have to get through so that I can get back to my life. But I soon learned that I was never going to be the same.
Yes. So you got this diagnosis, and I'm going to fast forward through the story a little bit, and then we'll kind of backtrack. But to kind of bring everybody in, you got this diagnosis, you went through a surgery, and then decided that this isn't going to beat me. I'm going to do this big adventure.
Yes. I was mourning this old self. I was mourning this old life. And I really had this moment. There was this pivotal moment in this post-surgery, post-brain radiation treatment. Oh my gosh, I'm never going to be the same moment. that I had a decision to make. Like, I either get up and do life or dwell on the old self and the old life. And to me, that was a matter of life and death. Like, and so I chose to live in that moment. I just chose to live. And I felt like I needed something to live for. And I remember a lot of people around me were saying what I should and shouldn't do and how I needed to be now. And I remember thinking, well, wait a minute, I get to decide. I get to choose who I get to be. And I get to choose how to move forward and what I do with my life. And so that's when I pulled out my bucket list and I realized there were so many things on my list I was going to do someday. And I stopped waiting for someday and I was like, the time is now. And so one of those things was riding my bike across the country. And I found the Pacific Coast bicycle route from Canada to Mexico. And on that same day, that pivotal moment I'm talking about is when I signed up for that 1,800-mile journey.
When you know, you know.
When you know, you know. Yes.
I love it. Yeah. Okay. So 1,800 miles, Canada to Mexico, essentially down the Pacific coast.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. So cool. So, and I love, like, I'm probably kind of jumping the gun here, but I love like that, life happens in moments, right? And it's like this one pivotal moment in this one sort of like day or series of like minutes or hours or whatever. And I'm curious, like, do you remember like exactly where you were when you sort of had this pivotal moment and sort of like what your environment was at that point?
I do. Yes. I was sitting in my living room we have this large brown leather sofa, and I had been wearing these gray sweatpants that were worn to bits. The hem was frayed on both sides, where the bottom's like dragging on the ground and the knees were worn out and the crotch was worn out. And I felt like I'd been living in those for like 6 months and this faded purple hoodie. And I was sitting on this couch for yet again, like another day, 6 months later, like trying to figure out what Netflix show I haven't binged watched yet. And I remember thinking like, this is really no way to live. And so that was the day my whole perspective changed. And I got off that couch and I got out of those sweatpants and I decided, I'm going to live, but this time I'm going to really live. It's not going to be someday. It's going to be right now.
It's amazing. It's so amazing. Okay, so I'm gonna play off your little kind of chronology game that you play in your book, and now we're gonna go back in time a little bit, and then we'll come back to this decision point and what happens going forward from there. But tell us a little bit about the Risa before your diagnosis.
Yeah, so Risa before. Well, I'll give you a little bit. Like as a child, I had like an adventurous spirit. The Indiana Jones movies were my favorite.
Me too.
I love those. And I always wanted to be an archaeologist. And so I'd be out in the back digging in the ground and getting my hands dirty. And so that kind of adventurous spirit carried into my adulthood. And I became an environmental educator and a wilderness therapy guide. And I got really into mountaineering and backpacking and all the things. And so that was kind of in me throughout my life. And then with that came, like I told you earlier, like also a very rigid mindset. I had that need for perfection and everything had to be done perfectly. And, when I went mountaineering, everything had to be precise. And I was the type to make my backpack as light as it could be. And so back then I took pride in that. Now I look back at that and I'm like, oh my gosh, you missed out on a lot of fun. Yeah. So there was an adventurous part of me before diagnosis, but again, it was very rigid.
I understand. Yeah. And that's, what kind of what transformation is all about. Before we come forward too far, again, like I kind of touched in the early part of this, that there are some adventures that I'm just super excited about that you've taken that I would love to do on my bucket list. What are some of the favorite adventures that you've taken?
Gosh, it's funny because I've had a lot of adventures, and people would say, "Oh my gosh, you've done so much." But then there's still that mindset of like, no, there's still so much more to do.
Of course.
So gosh, some of my favorite I loved Nepal. I loved Everest Base Camp. I've done so many bicycle tours. I recently did one along the Camino in northern Spain, and it actually was the hardest, most challenging trip of my life. I couldn't wait for it to be over. But as I say that, I really savor every experience I have, and I would never trade it for anything. I'm so grateful I even had that experience. And I've done other trips, like I visited like Turkey, and I got to walk through local villages and shop at some of their markets, and so there's things like that it's not always some epic big thing. Sometimes culturally, I just savor some of these other experiences. Like I went to Costa Rica, and a lot of people have been there, right? And it's beautiful, and it has amazing surf culture. But one of my favorite days there was venturing into this town. I'm not even sure I'm pronouncing it correctly, Guatil, and the villagers create pottery in their homes. They have these handmade wood fire like kilns that they made, and they make this beautiful pottery in their home. And then you go to this village, and you can just go up to their home and look at their pottery and buy their pottery. And that was one of my most favorite experiences. So it's not always this crazy epic adventure, but those are a few. I'm like, oh my gosh, I could go on forever about.
Oh, I love it. And you've also got 2 Ironman races under your belt.
Me too. Yes.
Yeah.
And I was on my way to a third one just before I was diagnosed.
Hey everyone, it's Scott here. This podcast is a passion project for me because I absolutely love adventure. And it's thanks to the effort of my residential real estate team here in Charlotte, North Carolina, that many of you know as the W Realty Group, that this podcast gets funded. This awesome group of people have unmatched levels of competence and caring for our clients. If you know of anyone looking to buy or sell a home, our team serves the Charlotte, North Carolina market, but we can also help you find an agent anywhere throughout the US or Canada through our highly connected network. When you support our real estate business, you are also supporting this podcast. Thanks for listening, and thanks for your referrals. So, but just to kind of paint the picture, I mean, you described yourself as an overachiever, and in the beginning of this. But so what is it like for somebody that is so determined, so ambitious, an overachiever, to get the news that you got?
Yes. Well, there's a stubborn part of me and a determined part of me. I actually wasn't really clear what I had. Like I didn't quite understand. So again, I had this attitude of, okay, well, we need to just get this done so I can get back to my life. I was training for a 250-mile bike ride in Moab. Like I had stuff to do. So, and I remember saying that to my neurosurgeon. I'm like, well, I said, I have this big bike ride after brain surgery, so I need to, like, how long is the recovery? And he looked at me like I had 2 heads, because, this bike ride was about a month after brain surgery. And he's like, you're not even allowed to drive. Like, there's no way you're getting on a bike. Yeah. And I started to learn pretty quickly after that I physically wouldn't be able to do much of anything.
So what kinds of emotions and things did you experience in that time? I mean, somebody that's so used to like going after such big things, to be told you can't even drive.
There's a rebellious part of me that's like, well, I'll show you. And there's also, again, I wasn't really clear on what I was in for, but when it started sinking in, there was a lot of grief. It wasn't just my physical body that changed. There was a lot of cognitive issues that started showing up, and but it was also, this is a part I don't think I talked about yet. It took 7 years from the time I started noticing some changes happening in my body to diagnosis. And so 7 years of, it got to a point where I felt like I was a hypochondriac, and these doctors, I felt like they thought I was.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no. I'm telling you, there's something off in my body. And so honestly, when I was diagnosed, when I sat in the endocrinologist room, I remember validation felt like the most important thing in that moment. Like I remember thinking, like, I knew it. I knew it. And then came, okay, now what do we need to do so I can get back to my life?
Yeah. It's so, because you do talk about it a bit in the book. I mean, quite a bit in the book. It is, when we talk about like, even like listening to the voice inside that's calling us to adventure, but it's like paying attention to what's inside of us, and you did that, but you got a lot of resistance. You got a lot of pushback. You knew something was wrong, but it took a lot of determination on your part to get somebody to like listen to you and pay attention and, dig deeper.
Yes, it really, I felt like it was like finding my voice for the first time. And so now I've become very vocal in this journey. And a lot of doctors and people don't like me, and that's okay. But I have to do what I have to do to take care of myself.
Yeah.
And I encourage other people to do the same.
And so much of what you do now is about helping bring awareness to this disease. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's believed that 1 in 5 people are walking around with these tumors and don't even know it. And had that doctor listened to me 7 years earlier, I might have had a much different prognosis. And so, man, oh man, if I can change that for other people who are walking around with them and not know it, because here's the thing, there was not a lot of information out there. So, I kept thinking it was my thyroid. And so no one even talks about the pituitary gland that's nestled at the base of your brain. And so I'm making a lot of noise as much as I can, and hopefully save other people from my same trajectory.
Yeah. So let's talk about Bubba.
Yes.
Tell us about Bubba.
Oh my gosh, he's hilarious. He's annoying too. But yes, so Bubba is my tumor, my brain tumor. And naming my tumor started from my mentor who, she saw how this battle I was going through of like, what do you mean I'm never going to be the same? Like what? And how I just felt like this was a nuisance in my life. Like, I don't have time for this. I don't have time for this tumor. I've always been such a healthy person. How could my body be betraying me? And she was like, what if you start talking to your body in a more positive way? And what if you named your tumor and kind of gently encouraged him to move on, and you go through brain surgery and tell him it's time to retire? And she has a very holistic view of the world. And so she's the type that believes a lot of our illnesses kind of come from, emotional traumas and things we have had in our lives. And so I was like, that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. I'm not doing it. But then one day I was in my car driving, and I found myself, well, what would I name you? Like, what? and I just pictured this very oafish, on my MRI screen, he's just kind of this gray blob, and he had this little arm that's kind of wrapped around my carotid artery. And it looked like a selfie, like they were chums. And it just kind of looked like this blobby, goofy little thing. And so the name Bubba just stuck. And it's just like this oafish kind of goofy personality.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, and, you're making, like, you're bringing humor to it, and you do it so well in the book. I couldn't help but kind of to bring it up here and just talk about it a little bit and let people kind of experience a little bit of what they'll get in the book. But so talk me through like your conversations with Bubba before your surgery.
Yes. This was kind of a new world for me, and because a lot of people were maybe encouraging me to tap into some sort of spirituality. And, suddenly I'm being told that people are like, I'm sending you my angels and stuff. And I'm like, I grew up Catholic, but I kind of, I don't know, the outdoors was always my place of, I don't know if worship's the right word, but like my place of being. And so I was like, I don't know. But I also was like, but what do I have to lose? Like, why not? Let's try it. And so I started tapping into that humor, and and I remember this is going to sound funny, but that same mentor sent me this GIF, and it was the little minions, the little yellow minions from the cartoon. Yeah. There's this minion walking to the pool, and he's kind of strutting, and you just see the back of him, and he's wearing a thong. His little yellow butt, his little Speedo thong, and his little yellow, and he's walking to the pool in his flip-flops. And she sends it to me, and she goes, "This is your tumor. Tell him to go retire."
That's Bubba.
Yeah. And so I was just like, okay, Bubba, take your little Speedo and flip-flops and find some Caribbean island, and it's time to retire. You served your purpose, and I'm ready for you to move on. And so, as ridiculous as it sounded, it was what I needed. Like it was what I needed at that time. And so it was conversations like that.
So I love it. It's so great. And so basically leading up to the surgery, I mean, you're basically preparing to send him off. He's going to go retire. He's going to go sit on the beach somewhere. And like, that's going to be the end of it. We're going to get rid of Bubba. So what happened?
Yes. Well, it was promising at first. The neurosurgeon was like, "Oh my gosh." It felt like like your tumor came right out. Like, I'm pretty sure I got all of it, but you have to wait 3 months for everything to heal up to really see what's going on in there. And so 3 months later, post-surgery, they found out that, the part that was wrapped around the carotid artery didn't come out, and it's too dangerous to operate.
Yeah.
And so now I was facing, what kind of treatment am I going to be on the rest of my life?
So when you decided to do the bike trip from Canada to Mexico, had you received that news yet?
Yes, I already had that news, and I still wasn't quite clear on the gravity of the diagnosis and what it meant to be that you're going to have this the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And it comes with this gnarly disease. And like, I still didn't know. And I'm learning that now as it progresses and as I age, but at that time I didn't know. But what I did know was that my body wasn't functioning the same. And I couldn't get off that couch, and life felt really hard. It was unfamiliar because I was used to doing everything all the time.
Yeah.
Give me a 10-hour day and it's all done.
Right.
So, and now I couldn't even get off the couch.
So why not sign up for a 1,800-mile race from Canada to Mexico?
Yes.
So
naturally.
Where was your body at that point in time, and what sort of training was going to have to go into this to get you from that day that you made this decision and signed up to when you actually showed up to start the race?
Yeah. So I had 14 months and I didn't know what it was going to take. I had friends, some of my cyclist friends encouraging me, "Oh, it's like riding a bike. Ha ha ha. Like, you're going to just bounce back." And that's what a lot of people don't understand about these types of diseases. But, and I didn't either. I was like, well, yeah, I'm just going to get back on my bike. But I couldn't get back on my bike. So, but I knew I had to get off that couch. So I had to start simplifying my life instead of thinking, okay, how do I ride 75 miles a day for 6 weeks straight? Like, instead of thinking that big, I had to think, well, what can I do right now? Mm-hmm. And so I really had to take a step-by-step approach. And so the first thing I did was get off the couch. But then I didn't even get on my bike for another, I think like 3 months. But I started painting and I started tapping into mindfulness practices
Yeah.
so that I wouldn't focus on what I can't do.
Right.
And so it was a process. It wasn't like, oh, boom, I'm back on my bike. And then when I finally did get back on my bike, it was 5 minutes a day on my trainer in the basement. And I had no idea. My first bike ride outside was 8 miles, and you're talking to someone who used to do 65 miles a day for fun. Like that was a fun day. And I got through 8 miles and I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. But all I had to do was get on my bike the next day and then again and again. And eventually I was at the Canadian border.
So awesome. Oh my gosh. I love it. In that 14 months, did you second guess yourself at all and wonder like, am I going to be able to do this?
I did second guess myself. But it's kind of, I did second guess myself and I felt like there was no other option. I had to do this. Like I had to do this. And so it felt almost like life or death. I can't explain it. And that might sound over dramatic, but like I had to do this. So there was no other option for me. There was no other option to people would be like, well, you could just, if you have to quit or someone can come pick you up or you could catch a flight back home. I was like, but no, there's no other option. Like I'm going to make it to Mexico.
And you did.
And I did. I sure did.
So here's the cool thing about this. Like, I want to go to the Canadian border and just kind of start there. And I want to hear about that trip. I want listeners to hear about it. I think one of the things that's so magical about your book, and I'm assuming it was intentional, but just the way you did it was it just comes out so authentically. But the trip is important, and the terrain that you covered and what you saw and the beauty and the nature, and there's so much in there that I want to hear about. But honestly, I think what's most important is the transformation that you get to experience listening to your story. And it's your transformation personally. It's the transformation of the relationship that you have with Bubba. And it's the transformation of the relationship that you have with the people that you're on that trip with. And it's all three of those that that you see, you can feel them and see them change throughout the story. So, we have a short period of time here, but I would love if you could kind of walk us through this amazing trip that you took from Canada to Mexico. Let's start in Canada and kind of what you were feeling there.
Sure. Yes. And just to add to that, the bike ride was kind of secondary. It was almost just like the vessel for me to go through those transformations. Yeah. And I remember being at the Canada border and there were 9 other people on the tour. We were all sharing a van that carried our gear from town to town, but it was up to us to get ourselves to the next campsite for the night. And so I remember being annoyed with all the other riders. And I was just like, holy crap, what am I doing here? I don't know if I have this in me. It was rainy, cold, the damp Pacific Northwest. And I just was like, am I up for this? Like, what am I doing? I even think I remember standing kind of far back, looking at the Peace Arch, and everyone was taking photos under the Peace Arch. And I remember being like, Bubba, what the hell are we doing here? and people are like, come on, Risa. And I just remember being annoyed with everyone and like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
But I was here. So there was like no turning back. And so that's where it started. And it continued to rain for 2 weeks straight, pretty much. We might have had some breaks here and there, but it was just this cold, damp situation. And so you're camping in the rain, you're getting out of your tent in the rain, you're putting away wet gear, you're eating your breakfast in the rain, you're eating lunch in the rain. Like it was just nonstop. But I remember somewhere in remote Washington, and I don't know how many days in, maybe 5 or 6 days in, I just had to head down in my rain gear again. It's very cold. And I'm just like, why am I doing this? I just had this really bad attitude. And I was like, but I was so focused on like how cold it was in the rain and having to be in my rain gear again. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, but I get to be on my bike. Like I get to have this opportunity that most people don't get to have. I need to look around more. And I remember I looked up, and at the end of someone's driveway, there was this recliner chair. And in the recliner was this giant, I don't know if you've seen them at Costco before, this giant teddy bear. Like they're the ones that are bigger than you are.
Yeah.
And it was sitting in the recliner with its hand up, waving. And I'm like, I would have missed that had I not like lifted up my head and started looking around. I would have missed that awesome teddy bear there. And I also started opening up to the other people on the trip. And I really do see the world in a vibrant way. And so they became characters almost in my story. But I really started opening up to connection with them. And there was a lot of laughter, and there was a lot of frustration, and I started noticing the changes in me, and how like learning to have more patience and compassion. And then, it took 2 weeks to get to California. And then I was in California for 4 weeks, and you go through all kinds of terrain there. The redwoods, I've been through the redwoods in my car, but by bike, it's like a whole different experience, and it's incredible. And then eventually you're riding on the beach. You're riding on a bike path on the beach, and there's sand all around you. And it just doesn't get better than that. And you meet all kinds of interesting people along the way. And then I remember making it to the wall and having to, well, I won't share too much, but yeah. And that was a different experience than I expected as well.
I feel like at one point in the book you mentioned, like, because it was just raining and raining and raining and raining, and then somebody made a comment like, oh, once we get to California, the rain will go away.
Pretty much. It's pretty much how it happened. The redwoods were still cold and kind of damp, but a lot less rainy. So
definitely kind of something to look forward to, and to like be able to cruise through California in the sun and finish in the warmth. That's nice.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah. Hey everyone, it's Scott here. Did you know that the members of my real estate team, W Realty Group, are listening to their own voices that call to adventure by setting big goals? Some of those goals include planning trips to Bali and the Kingdom of Bhutan, buying investment homes, and running the Chicago Marathon. At W Realty Group, we support and encourage these big goals and want to help turn them into reality. We're currently looking to add new members to the team. If you know a great real estate agent in the Charlotte, North Carolina area that would benefit from being part of our team, please send a text, an email, or give me a call. And know that when you support W Realty Group, you're also supporting this podcast. Thanks for listening. Geographically, I mean, gosh, I've had an opportunity to drive that, like to be able to experience it on a bike. It's just even so much more visceral. Were there any sort of landscapes that you've already mentioned, the redwoods, but anything else like kind of along that coastline that really jumps out at you, something that sort of touched you from a nature standpoint?
Oh gosh. I mean, there's so many. I remember in Oregon getting up a hill, a climb, and getting to this overlook and looking down on Manzanita and seeing the whole coastline south. And I'm like, oh my God, that's where I'm going. Like, and the sun happened to be out that day. It was just this beautiful, beautiful landscape ahead of me. And then getting into like Big Sur, and, you're riding these very narrow shoulders, and there's just sheer cliff drop offs. Yeah. And it's very scary, but also it's incredible scenery. So, I mean, gosh, that's a hard question because there's so much.
It's so beautiful. Yeah. And you had some, again, I guess I don't want to give it away either in your book, but like another thing I loved about your book was that like towards the end, like there's actually like a climax where there's like a physical encounter that you have. That's like, it's really sort of a climax in the book where it kind of, you were tested physically.
I was.
So I guess I'm curious on the people side. You talked about like starting the trip out, kind of feeling this like you're annoyed and you kind of just wanted this to be your trip and you just kind of wanted to be, you know, alone and just kind of do this bike ride. But as you went, you started developing these relationships with people. Any kind of fun little stories about how like any of those particular relationships evolved along the way?
Yeah, there's several of those as well. But, there was a couple people that they really liked my pace. So they wanted to ride with me. But I think partly they wanted to like take care of me. Like they wanted to make sure I was okay because everyone knew my story. And that really bugged me. And I was just like, feel free to ride with other people if you want. I remember being very standoffish at first, but then they just did really nice things for me. And I remember someone crashed into me and it wrecked my whole tire and my frame, my rim, and everyone just pulled together to try to help because we were 30 miles from the next town and we had to figure it out. And so people pulled together to try to help me, just get myself to the next town because I did not want to have to call the van and be like, wah, wah, and miss out on that 30 miles. And I remember one of the characters in my book, Trucker MacGyver, he had everything on his bike. And I was like, man, if I just had a piece of sandpaper. And he's like, Risa, and he's holding it up. And I was like, oh my gosh. And that was kind of a shift also in, you know what, like, I don't have to do it all myself. Like I can't, like people want to help. Like I know I know I want to help. Like I know I want to help other people if I can. Like I just genuinely want to help other people if I can. And so there's other people out there that want to do the same. And so I had to really kind of put down that need to do it all myself and be independent and really just embrace the support. And so that was a fun story. And it was hilarious because he was always eating peanut butter. So he had this spoonful of peanut butter in his mouth. And it was just like such a fun moment. And then we got chased by a dog at another point, and it kind of made us got us to that point of where that really hard belly laugh where it hurts so much. And there was just a lot of little moments like that.
It's so fun. Okay. Let's come back to Bubba and talk about this trip and how your relationship with Bubba kind of changed throughout the process.
Yeah, there was just really an evolution in that of like, and again, I don't want to give away too much, but like, he's not working against me. He's working with me. And he was there to almost push me to believe that I'm capable of more than I might believe or think. And so, yeah. And to trust that and to trust me again and to trust my body again. And he really became more of a cheerleader for sure.
I mean, it was such an incredible transformation in the way that you think about him and the relationship that you have as you guys kind of talked to each other throughout this whole thing. So you get to Mexico and it's 6 weeks it took?
Yes.
Yeah, it's incredible. So I'm curious, like in those moments, again, like life is lived in moments. Like what were those moments like for you when you actually got to the finish line?
I really thought I was going to have all the answers to this from this healing journey. I thought I was going to have my whole life figured out. And, because there were some personal things going on in my life as well, not just the diagnosis. And I thought I was going to just walk away feeling good and strong in some decisions I had to make. And it wasn't like that. Like life wasn't, it wasn't all wrapped up in a bow, and like it wasn't easy, and I still had to face some things ahead of me. And the road became a metaphor. Like it doesn't end. It keeps going, and it's not going to be smooth. And, and there's going to be detours and crazy twists and turns. And so I think there was a lot of peace actually in realizing, okay, it's not done here. It keeps going, but I now have the tools and the strength and the confidence and the shift of knowing how to handle it. Like I'm ready to take it on. Like I'm ready for it. And I'm ready to face it. So it wasn't what I expected. I wasn't all like, it wasn't all magical and I wasn't all healed and it wasn't perfect.
You're probably pretty exhausted too at that point, like ready for a warm bed, right?
Yeah, it was kind of a bit of a transition to, wait, what do you mean I don't have to get up and ride today? And not even have to, like, what do you mean I don't get to get up and ride today? So there was a little bit of an adjustment with that as well. But yeah,
I'm curious, like having been through that adventure, which is huge, and then just like, everything else kind of leading up to now, and you kind of look back, like, I guess if you could go back and sort of be a cheerleader for the you that was receiving the diagnosis and going through the surgery, and like, is there any like advice that you would look back and give yourself?
Oh gosh, that's a tough question. There's kind of so many elements to that. But the thing is what came down to for me is that I realize I get to choose. I get to choose what I do with this, like how I move forward with this. It doesn't have to be what the doctor tells me or what all my friends tell me or like I get to choose how I face this. And I think at that time at diagnosis, I didn't realize all that. And now looking back, it's like, well, I always had a choice. I always had a choice how I was going to handle this or face it or live or work with it. And so, yeah.
I love the idea that just being open to it being a choice.
Yeah.
But do you know what I see? I mean, just for nothing, but like, you've got this.
Yeah.
I mean, you made this decision to go do this 1,800-mile bike ride, and you did it.
Thank you.
It's pretty incredible. And now you get to share your story with other people. And I know that people are paying attention. You're getting to do, you wrote this amazing, inspiring book, and you're out doing speaking gigs and talking to people. And what's that like for you to now be the inspiring story for people?
Oh gosh, there's part of me that still gets uncomfortable hearing it. It's like, oh, you're such an inspiration. And, I get squirmy about it. I don't know why. It's because I feel like I'm no different than anyone else. I'm just here trying to figure it all out as I go along. Like I'm winging it here. Like, but I'm staying true to myself and I'm being who I am and, doing adventures, like going on adventures, like that's who I am. And so I don't want to lose that. I don't want to not do that. And so, yeah, I don't know. There's nothing like it. There's nothing to answer your question. Like I'm so happy to hear when people say, wow, you've inspired me to do this thing or that thing. Like that seriously fills my heart. Just wants to burst.
I'm curious, do you feel like any sort of like a sense of responsibility for like sharing this story with people? I mean, I know that you've said that it's very important to you that people like figure out to get diagnosis as soon as possible.
I don't know if it's responsibility as much more, it's more so a passion. A passion to get people diagnosed earlier, but not even that. It goes beyond that for me. Like, I really do want to inspire people to live life on their terms and to not wait for someday. And my TEDx talk actually talks a lot about this, is just like, don't wait for the someday, like start now. And your dreams or goals may not be an 1,800-mile bike ride, but you can still take steps toward that. And, I was in that place of thinking of all the reasons why I can't. And I started asking myself, well, what can I do? And that really opened up my life. I may never do another Ironman, but man, I've done indoor skydiving and I've taken an aerialist silks class and I've taken improv classes and hip hop dance and it's been a blast. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I've been missing out on all this other stuff in my life.
That's so cool. I mean, you just cranking forward. It's amazing. Can you tell us a little bit about the book? I know we've kind of talked about it all the way through, but yeah, what
Yeah. So I like to say it's not a book just about cycling. It's about a journey through transformation. And, it's really the place I did discover my dark humor and how sometimes humor can actually be very powerful
It's great.
in some of our darkest moments. But yeah, if you like stories about adventure and transformation and some fun characters along the way, I think you'd enjoy it.
Yeah, it's a great read. It's very easy and it's just fun. I think I read the whole thing in a weekend and it was awesome. How can people get a copy?
Yes, you can go to my website, risaaugust.com. That's RISA August, just like the month. And you can find all things Risa there.
Yay. So, I mean, Risa, for people listening, like that maybe have experienced some sort of diagnosis or just some obstacle that's come up in their life that's caused them to say, like, I can't do those things anymore. What advice do you have for people?
Oh gosh, you're stronger than you think. You're more capable than you may believe. And ask yourself, what can I do? Well, what can I do? And see where that leads you. See what answer comes up. And keep asking yourself that in every moment. So
You have such an incredible story. I mean, even from the beginning, like the Indiana Jones days and like following this passion and, building up this whole life of adventure and then, this major setback, but then pushing through it. I mean, this is like Hollywood stuff. Okay. And at some point, Hollywood's going to want to make a movie about you. And so when they do, I want to know who's going to be the Hollywood actress that's going to play you in your movie.
Thank you for saying that. Well, it's funny you should ask. I did submit my screenplay for The Road Unpaved earlier this year, and it was acquired by a production company in Hollywood. And it's set to go into production in 2026.
Oh, no way. Amazing.
I don't have a say in the casting, but I've always, people ask me this question, and the person that comes up is Jennifer Garner.
Nice.
Yeah, she's just this natural, authentic personality, and she has a kind of a goofy, fun side of her, which I feel I have, and so that's the person that comes up for me.
How fun! And so, is it going to be called The Road Unpaved?
It is. It is The Road Unpaved. My screenplay, my script is titled The Road Unpaved. Yes.
All right. And so Jennifer Garner, we want you. This is so cool. Risa, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. Your story is so inspiring. The book is great. It's entertaining and inspiring. It's like kind of the best of both worlds. So thank you for that and everything that you're doing. And for those listening, I hope you've been inspired today as much as I have. Hope Risa's story has encouraged you to listen to the voice inside that calls you to adventure, because we want to hear your story next. If you have a story to tell or just need a nudge to create one, please send me an email. We'd also appreciate it if you'd help us spread the word by leaving a review and sharing or tagging Inspire Campfire in your social media. And until next time, I want to encourage you to get outside. Thanks for listening. Risa, thank you so much for being here.
Oh my gosh, what a joy. Thank you so much.